Hello, and thank you for joining Urban Disrupt, your address to social innovation. Today, we are happy to have Shachar Zahavi with us, founder of IsraAID, a nonprofit organization provides life-saving disaster relief and also long-term support. Hi, Shachar, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you very much for having me here.
So tell me briefly about IsraAID and your work.
I started international humanitarian aid at the age of 21 after the army during the genocide in Rwanda. And since then, I've been involved in most of the relief efforts, civilian relief efforts worldwide on behalf of Israel. And about in 2001, we established IsraAID.
How did you get involved in the field, and also where did the idea for IsraAID come from?
Well, the idea from IsraAID came from 1995 during the genocide in Rwanda. Until now, there wasn't any serious international Israeli non-government organization. And as a result, I wanted to build something really meaningful, and hopefully we'll get there very soon.
What was the biggest challenge operating the first time during crisis, and how did you overcome this challenge? Tell us about this experience.
The biggest challenge that I think was for us was Haiti. And the reason that it was a big challenge is that barely any international aid organization was able to get to the field. All the rest of the international aid organizations, including the armies, sat in the airport and were expecting people to come to them for treatment. I think the other organizations were scared of going into Port-au-Prince, which is the capital, because they were scared of riots. And we were the only ones who entered the city and opened a field clinic in the middle of a stadium. And the reason that we did that is because we didn't want to sit and wait for people to come to us. We wanted to be in the middle of it. We had to alternate and do a lot of very, very weird types of treatments, because we didn't bring, the army brought the surgeons. And the most serious people who needed real surgery, we tagged them, we wrote in Hebrew on their chest on a paper that it's coming from us and this is what's needed. And then we had a car moving back and forth between us and the IDF field hospital who just arrived.
What do you think differentiates your organization from other similar groups that are doing the same job?
The difference between what we do and what other international aid organizations do is that we don't come with something in mind. We have the professionals, but when we get to the field, we first sit with the people, we listen to what they need, and then we let them figure out how to actually implement it. And then all we do is we help, we guide, we train, we accompany them. We're not a hit and run organization. We do the disaster, we go into the rehabilitation, and then we go into the long term and see with them how to actually rehabilitate their lives from scratch. And meaning, in the disaster phase, we do emergency medical, we do search and rescue, we provide psychosocial treatment. In the rehabilitation phase, we do child-friendly spaces. We continue with the psychosocial. The medical turns from emergency medicine into primary health programs, where what happens usually in a disaster is you first treated the injured, but then suddenly when it's done, people start coming to you and I'm sick, my heart hurts, my throat hurts, and 30% we do direct implementation, and 70% we do training the trainers.
And the community is integrating to these programs, right? As you said.
They integrate themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're taking an active role in the whole process.
They're taking an active role, and we make sure that the women are involved as well.
And a big part of your work is partnership with different governments, different NGOs, and so on. Can you share with us some of this experience and how it's affected your work in the field?
We work with various international aid organizations, and I can tell you they're very impressed. And the Israeli issue, I know there's always politics, but we don't talk politics. We're a non-government organization, so that's very important for us to stress every time we go to the ground, because IsraAID sounds like a government entity, but we're not. Another example is the BDS campaign. We don't feel it. In every country that we offered humanitarian aid, we got a positive response, including in a place like Chad. It's a country that doesn't have any official diplomatic relations with Israel. And we were able to do a 5-year psychosocial therapy program for Darfurians who fled Sudan. They have this thing stuck in their mind about who we are, what we are as Israelis. But then suddenly when they see how we work on the ground and they sit with us for lunch and dinner at night, all these different international aid organizations, the attitude changes, and we build a lot of partnerships in the countries that we work with.
How many people works for IsraAID nowadays, and also in how many regions you are currently operating?
Currently, we're operating in 3 continents, in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. We operate in over 18 countries. We have about 70 staff, which includes also non-Jews and non-Israelis. Most of our funding comes from international aid organizations. We got some money from UNICEF, from CSR, from Oxfam, from Red Cross. And the reason that they invested in us is because they saw how beautifully and how professionally we did our programs on the ground. And they were very ecstatic about it, and they decided to invest in it. It's almost like an Israeli startup. Because when we come, usually we go to the Jewish community when there's a disaster, and we say, come and invest. And your investment would eventually lead into a bigger investment. And what happens is that we get funding from the Jewish community, from institutions, from federations, HAC, B'nai B'rith, all these kinds of and private foundations. And the success on the ground attracts a lot of international aid organizations and foundations, and eventually we're able to do very interesting things.
What is the best lesson that you have learned over the years?
Always be open-minded. Always find smarter employees than yourself, and be very flexible. Very open-minded, very flexible. That's the main thing.
And before we conclude, where do you see the organization in the next 10 years, and what are some of the future plans that you have?
We want to be the next Red Cross. We want to be the next big organization. We have offices registered in Japan. We're going to register in China. We have offices in South Sudan, in Sierra Leone, and in America. And these offices are not offices that fundraise money. These offices are offices that eventually are independent offices. They also bring people, professionals. They help develop programs, and hopefully all of us together would eventually be one big consortium of an IsraAID consortium, where people would know that the consortium and the programs came originally and started in Israel. That's where I want to head.
Thank you, Shachar, for the great inspiration, and thank you for joining Urban Disrupt, your address for social innovation. See you next time.